Mic
How's that?
check. Mic check.
You sound good.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode, Coach. I'm Coach Samuel Barclough, founder of the VA Titans. Here today we have joining us our Coach Corey Hemphill, our lovely Miss Allison, and our special guest, Mr. Eugene.
All right, so I'm going to tell us a little bit more about Eugene. Eugene Holloman is a former two-time all-conference running back at JMU, and Holloman holds a master's degree in business. He works in leadership at a Fortune 500 healthcare company and is now pursuing a doctoral degree at Regent University. He is the creator and the author of the young adult book series, The Athlete Student. And it's his second time visiting us here on Coach, first time face-to-face.
Welcome back.
So we're very excited about that. Eugene, we're so glad to have you back on Coach, and we're looking forward to some perspective-driven conversation. Why don't you get us started and tell us a little of your story in your own words?
All right. So first, when you get a invite back, that means you're a pretty good guest. So I appreciate that. So my story, is pretty typical. Starts off, I like to take people back, right? And so when I was 5 years old, the only time I can stay up past my bedtime, my 8:30 bedtime, is when Monday Night Football was on, and my dad allowed me, to kind of stay up until halftime. And it was one particular night, the Raiders were playing. I don't remember exactly who, but Bo Jackson, I remember him taking it probably like 75 yards. And I looked at my dad and I said, this is what I want to do in my life. Like this is what I want to do. And so ever since that moment, he pushed me to do just that. Everything was football focused. Everything was surrounded, around football. And I never wavered from that dream. You'd ask me from the age of 6 to the time I turned 22 years old, what I wanted to do. Without a doubt, I want to play in the National Football League. And so to make a long story short, I was almost there. My junior year at James Madison University, I was all conference, right? They were selling my number 14 jersey in the bookstores. I had a billboard in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Yeah, I don't want to tweet my own horn, but I was quote unquote the guy, the man on campus, right? And I took advantage of that. I didn't understand the notoriety, the popularity. When girls were just making advances at me, I took that all in, like what any 21-year-old kid would. I went to high school at Bayside High School, and we were mediocre at best, right? And so I wasn't necessarily that known. I was a decent football player because we just weren't that good, right. And it kind of catapulted itself when I got to JMU, and so. In my mind, I was like, all right, I don't really have to go to school no more. Like I was counting, and I wasn't gonna get drafted, first or second round or anything like that. But even 6th, 7th round, right. That still allowed me the opportunity to, get in there and kind of do my thing, and I'll make the money on my next contract. And so going into my senior year, I had it circled on my calendar. We were playing at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Michael Jordan built. It's crazy because I was looking around in the stadium, and this is the time they had Tyler Hansborough, the big center, and I recognized him. I was like, man, I'm here, and I was ready to put on the show. But I ended up taking a pitch to the right, and I never forget it. They had these all-conference or 5-star recruits at the time. One of them went to play with the Giants, and I took the pitch to the right. And he was barreling down like he was about to take my head off. And so I tried to do my 1-2 step and turn back left. And when I did that, my whole body went left aside from my right knee. And pretty much, I tore every ligament in my knee. I had two knee surgeries after that. And I did major in the easiest major JMU had to offer, right? And I came home here to Virginia Beach, Virginia. I did graduate. I got my college degree. But from the time I was 5 until 21, 22 years old, when that injury happened, it was football. And so for the first time, football was ripped away, and I had no identity outside of it. Right. And so I wanted to commit suicide. Like I went through depression. Mm-hmm. And mind you, at the time, that was around like 2008, 2009. Therapy was not mentioned in our community, right? And so I was forced to kind of deal with it, on my own. And even my father, man, I love my father, but it was we're gonna do this, we're gonna go to the league. Mm-hmm. But when it was over, it was like, so what you gonna do with your life? You know what I'm saying? It's humbling, and I struggled, and I know my father had a gun, and I remember looking for it, because I was like, man, this is not my life. Like nobody even like really calls to check up on me no more. But when I was balling,
Everybody.
everybody was hitting me up, and luckily I couldn't find my dad's gun. And I ended up calling, one of my older cousins, and I was telling him, like, man, I don't like balling. I don't want to live no more, basically. And he kind of, just held my hand and walked me through it, allowed me to get whatever it was off my chest. He'll call me every day just to check up on me. And I'm indebted to him for that. But I see it a lot. I wasn't the only one who kind of went through that experience. And I know I'm being long-winded, but
No, that's your story.
Yeah, it's a
We
story.
want to hear it.
and I see a lot of guys who follow in my footsteps or been where I've been, and it's unfortunate because for me to think I can make it up out of my community, I had to rely on athletics, right? And that I look back now, and that's not even the case. Like I was made and born to do more, but I kind of closed my my circle, my wall in to think that's all I could do, and I just want to be that voice to the kids to say, man, you can do whatever it is that you want to do with your life, right? Your body is going to fail you, but what you put into your mind, it will never leave you. And so that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I made it out of the depression, luckily. It's some guys who still hold on to those hoop dreams and can't make it out of that. And I'm really fortunate that I had someone around me who will not say that, man, you tripping, man, get it together, but will actually listen to me and understand where I was coming from.
Right.
So I'll kind of leave it at that. Yeah.
Deep, bro.
It's interesting you say that about as far as the feeling of being alone and actually saying it out loud and recognizing that there are other people with that same like feeling. And in addition to that, those two pieces that are so interesting to me is that you had said that when football was ripped away from you, it was kind of like, what am I going to do now? And that's the same thing we preach to a lot of our younger players. And that's so big that you say that because it's not tossed around a lot. It's not focused on as much as it should be, because I have some players that, every coach feels their players, some of their players are probably the best, I'm sure. But we've got some players that, man, they're good, And it's not even the ball. It's like, but it's more than that. You know what I mean? Just like you say, you were put here for more than just that. Yeah. And getting them to understand that and look past that is half the battle, because once you can get them to understand, man, you got to do what you can do. And once you can't do it, it's more.
Yeah.
That's so huge, because once they don't get it, they want to give up, like you said before. And it just rings a bell, because I'm thinking of some older players who have brothers that are playing with me now, but I think of the older players, and I hear that, and I'm like, wow. You know what I mean? It's like, you were right there too. And one player's coming to my mind, his name's LaRon, and his younger brother is Terry. LaRon was a great athlete, good basketball player. Couple little things happened, glitched him up a little bit, and it was kind of like, well, what am I do now?
Yeah.
And they don't understand how, like, yo, you're not even alone. That's so normal. And if you could get that vocalized a little bit more, that actually really helps a lot. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, I can speak to that too. That's the curse of dreaming big. When we all think like you said, you was in it. You was in that situation when you was the man. Everything was going good for you, but nobody puts you into perspective of the nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, guess what happens when you hit that wall and you don't have it? What do you do? And Sam, he speaks to that all the time. I'm always talking about to the kids too. Like, everybody wants to go to the NBA, but nobody thinks about how far-fetched of a dream that is. Going to the NBA, going to the NFL, it's like playing a lottery. That's what I tell kids. It's like playing a lottery. Yeah, you can look at sports to help you pay some bills, help you go to school. But what happens if, like you said, you make one move to the left and everything goes to the left and something stays on the right? What happens after that? What do you do? Like, what's that second option? Because too many of our kids put all their eggs in one basket. As Eugene said, I was one of them kids too. I had the hoop dream. Scholarships, I'm doing good. Then I got to college and it wasn't what I thought it was.
Right.
The dream was over. I had to wake up, and I was like you. What do I do now? Luckily, I didn't go through it as deep as you did, and trust me, I give you big props for getting up off the ground like that. Because, man, I'm telling you, there's some people that you know, they don't never bounce back. They're still in the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure it out. Our age, you know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
I do want to make one more point, right? So in our community, right, and so say you're 5 years old, right, and you can run real fast. People can identify that gift
Mm-hmm.
before they can say, "Oh, you can be what, an engineer or
Engineer,
a mathematician or something like that." And so that's what happens in our culture, though.
It
So
does.
you
That's
can
facts.
throw the ball far. Oh, you can be a quarterback, and so those
Right.
things
Yep.
start to seep in, and we don't necessarily look at the talents that's deep within it. Those things are harder to find. And so for me, hearing that, oh, you're fast or you can do this, yeah, I'm gonna take that and run with it. Because one, I do recognize those things in myself. Like I can tell I'm faster than some of my peers. But two, that translates because I'm when I turn on ESPN, it's always on. So
Yeah.
I'm automatically there. I go from A to Z. Like I'm fast.
Right.
Oh, I can be the next Emmitt Smith. Right. And so it's not as like sexy to see somebody who's a doctor or a lawyer or had to go to school
Yeah.
for 10 years to get into that profession. And so I wish there was a way that we can help children identify gifts as fast as we can when we say on the exterior that you're big and strong or you're fast or quick,
Right.
or whatever the case may be.
I think a big piece of that is correlating it to the job as a coach, like you said. And I just take examples from experience. We might be doing a drill, and you have one player, let's say he's jumping really high, but he's doing it really consistently. We being adults look at that, we look at that like there's more than that. Because if you're able to operate in that consistency mindset, just the right motivation, you can use that in different facets.
Yeah.
And that's the part that a lot of coaches and it's not the blame coach. If you're out here coaching, you trying to do your best to give back, that's all the props,
Yeah, absolutely.
But to me, to not recognize that, for one, what the title is and what comes under that and what your responsibility is. Once you recognize that, it kind of makes it simple to have the integrity part, because that's the part that you can't, you like you say, you see a kid fast, but they don't want to recognize other things.
Yeah.
They see the speed part and they're like, all right, but in our society, in our culture, that's what's the popular
Yeah.
look.
It's your way out.
Right.
If you can
It's your
dunk
way
and
out.
jump,
Yeah.
it's not going to be fun to say, man, you read a lot, right?
Right.
Yeah, don't tell nobody.
Right, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
That's
some of
not
our
cool.
boys too,
Yeah.
some of our boys, or not our boys, not just me in general, our community.
Yeah.
They don't even know that they're on the download coding, using these systems now with whether it be the Xbox or PlayStation, they taking these remotes and they're doing things different. They don't even realize what they're doing.
Right.
Same thing in the sports. They don't realize how it translates.
Yeah.
So something really interesting listening to both of you. We need to identify these skills. These are some of the same skills though, right? So we need the skills that make us good athletes translate into other skills. And I like how you said it's part of the coach's task. When we do identify those skills, what kind of experiences as a community, as coaches, as mentors, what kind of experiences can we give kids to develop leadership, social skills, personal skills, whatever it is that we can identify? How do we make that all work?
Well, I think you have to take them away from that environment and show them outside of this is what you can do. Us growing up, all of us grew up in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all of our coaches, especially where I come from, all the mentors and coaches, everything was done on the floor. So it's like they're talking to you and speaking to you about things outside of that, but you're still stuck in that environment.
That's
with
good.
all of that around
Yeah.
you, the props, so you thinking like, basketball, football.
Yeah.
But if you take a kid away from that environment and say, look, this is a computer. Let me show you how to code. Keep that same work ethic you got and put it into your everyday life. It could change it. It would change a lot. But for me, I would think take them out of that environment and show them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
That definitely is, I think, something that you've actually done. I think doing the making of a man sometimes, which is something I definitely want you to
Perfect example.
participate in.
Yeah, I would
have
love
your
you
son.
to
I
participate.
definitely have to talk to you about. But it's like one of the things, you take them out of that environment,
Yeah.
like you said, and that's a mouthful right there.
It is. And that making of a man is huge. when I was a part of that, I didn't realize it until I showed up to it. I'm like, man, this is to take all of our athletes and put them in a room with people who are speaking to them about, you can be more than just an athlete.
Yeah.
That's huge for kids. Like a lot of organizations don't get that. Some of these kids, they don't know how to tie a tie. And it's crazy. That's lost art. My dad grew up, you got to tie a tie, son, to be a man. You got to tie a tie. But now these kids, they don't tie ties. So it's like when they go into job interviews, it's for some of them, it's the first time they getting dressed up. We're giving our kids a head start on that. They're going to have success outside of basketball.
Definitely. I think it's an obligation.
It comes down to exposure, right? And so when you're exposed to something different, and you probably can't even put the pieces together at the time that you're being exposed to it, but those things have a way to stick with you, right? If I walk into a room as a 10-year-old and I saw that you were tying a tie and you taught me how to tie a tie, like it would stick with me, right? I may forget the steps, but I at least been exposed to someone that I look up to being able to do so. And so exposure is like 9/10 of the law when it comes to children. If like you said, if we take them out the environment, we show them something different, right? Their perspective starts to change, and you see life differently. But if we're stuck in the same cycle, it's kind of hard to see outside of the walls.
Definitely.
Well, Eugene, let me ask you a question as far as exposure, because you written and published a few books. Not that you haven't written some, you've got probably more in the works, but who exposed you to that?
That's a good question. So after I came out of my kind of depression stage, right? And I was telling you earlier, I stayed close to Indian River over here where the YMCA is. And so here I was with a college degree. I couldn't really find a job. And so across the street was a Mayor Group at the time, which is now Anthem, literally across the street from where I lived. And so I applied and I got an entry-level position. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna use the same thing that I did in football, the intangible things, and some of the tangible things too. And I'm gonna apply it to this entry-level job, right? I'm gonna show up on time.
Right.
I'm gonna outwork everyone. I'm gonna be the best that I can be. And so, make a long story short, I got accepted into the company's leadership development program. And one of my best friends to this day was also a part of the program. And he's a straight up nerd. Like if it was high school, I would have never hung around with this guy because he wasn't cool. Right. But now he's my best friend. Like he exposed me to so many different things. Like, he'll sit in like the cafeteria and he's reading books. Right. At the time, I'm looking like, man, this dude is a lame. And he called me over one time and he was like, oh, let's have a conversation. And from that day, he gave me books to read. We sat down and started establishing goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right. So, like I said, that word exposure. And so seeing him do that, I started to read books. Right. And not knowing that I'll be able to write a book on my own. But that was the first piece of exposure I had to like really reading books. I went through middle school, high school, college. I didn't pick up a book, right? You know what I'm saying? I faked it until I made it, but I actually sat down and read books and had conversations about it, and I got favorite authors, and I started to develop this writing style. And so one of the goals that we had was to continue school, and so I went back and got my master's, right? And I accumulated some student loan debt. And so 2 years later, he was like, man, you should go back to school again so you can get your loans deferred and you can try to pay them off. Right. And I was like, I'm not doing this.
He was putting you on good game.
He was putting me on game, right?
Game.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm tired of paying these student loans. And so I went and I enrolled at Regent. And the first assignment is a course called Leaders and Followers. And I wrote this 10-page paper. And I gave it to my professor, and she gave me a 86. And I don't know, the last time I made an 86, like I was like excited.
Right.
And I asked her, like, did you really read my paper or did you just give me these grades? And she was like, no, Eugene, I think you got a really, cool writing style. And so this light bulb went off. I was like, man, if I'm going to sit here and write 10-page paper about like leadership, let me write about something that I really want to write about. And so on the side, I just started writing. I didn't know it was going to turn into a book or anything. I started writing this fictional story about this character that I created and all these good things. And I was like, yeah, I got to put this bad boy out. And then that's kind of how it started.
It's definitely good work. Like I said, I had my youngest reading it. I myself had to take part and enjoy it myself. But, the thought that you put so much energy into football from the age of 5 to 6, that was your main focus, main goal. At the same time you were doing that, that was giving you everything to do what you're doing now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To that level. Because that's why you could dive in and excel like you did. You know what I mean? And that's something I wish a lot of these athletes could like just see. Cause they got to see that. You know what I mean? Cause that's like, that's everything. You know?
We got a gift, man. You being an athlete, you're a special human being, right?
are.
You can take on so much that most kids can't take on. We don't realize that. Like
Right.
like for your coaches to be able to tell you something and you follow through on it, right? That's something special in itself. To be accountable to the brother next to you, that's something special in itself. The work ethic, right? When you dog tired and you got to go to practice, right? That's like these are some characteristics that's being developed and molded.
Yeah.
And we got to be able to see that, right? And so, yeah, I had these things in myself. I just didn't know until I said, let me apply the same thing that I was doing from 5 to 22 years old to outside of athletics. And these things like translated very well. And I never knew that. And so every athlete, whether you are, you know, the starter, the superstar, to the last man on the bench, I guarantee you got something like unique inside you that you don't realize just by being an athlete. Like it's special, man. And I wish like parents and kids really understood that, how we can pull that out and apply it to any facet of life. We can do it.
Well, I think it's impressive that you were able to self-identify, like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to apply this to that. Because I think sometimes as adults, we forget, you know, when our kids are athletes, when they're playing their sport, they're producing in a way similar to a way an adult who does what they do does. So we start to see them a little differently, and we maybe forget kids need to hear it. It needs to be verbalized to them. Someone needs to point it out to them. That's how their minds work. They need to be reinforced so that they can repeat it and repeat it out. They are reinforced in their sport, but reinforce, I see this quality. This is how you can use it. Like it's impressive you're able to do it on your own, you know, because kids need that.
And I, as a parent, I really use that skill with my son. Like some of the stuff I tell my son, some people like, man, like I never thought of that. You know what I'm saying? Some things that you say to kids, it resonates to them differently. So it's like you got to speak things in their life now and show them things in their life now that helps it make things greater for them in the long run.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's where a lot of athlete parents get it mixed up, because some of the athlete parents who are really good, like he played at a high level. Some parents who played at that level, they forget the work and everything that shaped them to help their child. You see what I'm saying? They're just like, you should be just as good as me. You should be averaging 30 a game.
If I could do it, you could do it.
Right. That's their mindset.
Yeah.
Instead of taking everything that they've been through and incorporate it into their life and speaking it into sports and life.
Yeah.
It's hard. So it takes a special athlete to do that. I commend you on that, Eugene, for sure.
Definitely true, right? There, man. A lot of athletes, a lot of somewhat athletes, a lot of wannabes, a lot of, you know, just wasn't enough. They really forget.
They forget.
And they also forget when they started out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, those memories are very easy for me to grab onto, like how I started anything out. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't the most athletic person in the world. It would be certain things I was really good at. You know what I mean? And I held on to them really good. And the same thing with a lot of these kids now. I think parents overlook it. You know, it'd be like maybe you were a good rebounder or rim protector or something like that, and you're looking at your son like, you're tall like me, why can't you do it? But maybe your son hand-eye coordination, maybe his court vision is something higher than you even have.
Right.
Maybe he looked at the game so different.
He looks at different.
That you're just like, yeah, Dad, but if I just, you don't even want to hear it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Corey and Eugene both touched on something that I think is really important about college sports and college athletes. So most college athletes end up in a routine of practice, film review, weight room, gym, and back again. How does that type of regimen for a college student, how does that hurt them? Because we know how it helps them. We know how it helps them as athletes, but how does it hurt them?
I can speak to the bad on that. Eugene could probably speak to the good. So for me, what shortened my career is I didn't balance it. You see what I'm saying? So I'm like, I'm here to play basketball. I'm not here to do anything else. So when it came to college, for me, it was more of, I looked at like, I'm on my own. I don't have to answer to anybody. And, so basically my focus was on sports, and that's where I needed more shaping around it. So when I had people shaping me into understanding that balance, and it was too late. And I didn't get that training coming into it, which hurt me. I could have had a 4-year career, but because I didn't have people around me helping me understand how 5 a.m. practices, you got to go to class. Class might start at 7:30 or 7:40. You got to be there, and you have to pay attention. See, that sounds easy, and you have to pay attention. I'm in there like sessions.
But it's important what you said. I mean, when you think about like 2% of college athletes go on to play professionally.
They do.
So the other 98% have to go live a life without sports as their career. Well, at least as without being a player, So if they don't pay attention or they don't show up, where does that leave us?
Yeah, and of that 98%, 60% think they're all going to the league.
Yeah.
And they're in class like, I'm going. No, you're not. Exactly. Like, you're really gonna have to live a regular life. This one guy right here is going.
Yeah.
The other 11, you guys got to get jobs.
Yeah.
You guys got to get degrees.
And this one guy, depending what school you go to, too. Might be none of these guys.
None of these guys, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, the routine, even helps me to this day. So like being a student athlete, definitely on a college campus, is like having 2 full-time jobs, right? And so in corporate America, I sit around these leaders, these managers, these directors, right? And they're complaining about, time management, or I have so much on my plate. But as a student athlete, right, you got basically 16 hours, and you got so much to do, and so you got to be really efficient, right? And so that's what I take away the most, is that, man, I'm efficient. I'm gonna get this thing done in the least amount of time, and it's gonna deliver like high quality, right? And so if that created anything, is that one, I got to get this thing done, and I'm not going to complain about it, right? Because when you complain about something, somebody else is about to take your job, right? You know what I mean? So I still do it to this day, right? I take these characteristics, and I see these people, high level execs complaining about this. I'm like, man, this is not pressure, right? This should be simple.
That's all you've ever known.
So the routine, I think, is one, and then just the time management is crucial.
Super
right?
I'm a witness, everybody.
Yeah.
Time management is critical
it's crucial,
with athletics.
right? And so even with work, when I have these big projects, I still don't miss family time. Okay. You know what I mean? I keep a proper perspective, and that's what student athletes have to do with so much going on. Like, you can't miss a team meeting because you got a 30-page paper due.
Right.
You gotta make it work, and so get the job done. That's what coaches want, right? And that's what your professors expect, is like, I give you this, get it done. And so that's my mentality. I'm not about to complain about it. I'm gonna find a way to complete it, and complete it with high level results.
Yeah, that one thing about sports, it teaches you that discipline, man. Because my coach used to always say, if you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
My freshman year, I'm like, that sounds crazy. I'm on time. And when I showed up on time, he was like, get online.
Yeah.
He's like, no, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. That applies now. Now I think like that. Like, when I go to work, I'm there like 30 minutes early, ready. You know what I'm saying? Ready to go.
Right.
So definitely applies. It is real. It is real.
I tell you, one of the most humbling things as an athlete too is that, definitely as a football player, you sit in a room with 50 other guys. You got your coach with this pointer, rewinding. You did this. You didn't do this right. Man, and so you go to the real world, right? Like, I'm trying to be the best and not make so many mistakes, and it's humbling when the guy sitting next to you and you getting ripped by your teammates. Like, it takes a different type of person to endure that. Yeah. And like I said again, like athletes, man, we're built different, and so when you can handle that type of criticism and try to be better each day, like for instance, when I first I transferred to JMU, by the way, because my grades were so bad. So I went to junior college in Kansas. I didn't tell you guys that. But when I got to JMU, they had 2 all-conference running backs. They just came off the 2004 national title. And so they were talking about moving me to defensive back because they were short on defensive back. And I was like, coach, just give me one chance. You know what I mean? And these since they were coming off the national championship, like these guys was like gods.
It's
Like,
like,
yeah, like I was like, okay. And I was like eighth on the depth chart.
Mm.
And I was hungry though. And so when you've been there, you've been to the top, you tend to forget what it takes to get there. And so one guy, he started drinking real bad at JMU because we were known as a party school,
okay.
right? And the other guy, he hurt his hamstring.
Okay.
And I was balling in spring practice, and I was supposed to red shirt, but since they had the suspension to the guy who was drinking and the other guy who was hurt, I was forced to play the number one team in the nation, App State, right? And I played okay, but after that, when we went to film study, and they were like coaching me up and they was riding me, and I felt like I was the worst player ever. And so it does one of two things: either you're gonna shrink or you're gonna step up to the challenge and want to be better. And I'm thankful for that now. The times that I got ripped by coaches, because I stepped up to the challenge and made me want to be like a better person, a better
Right.
player. And
Would you say, not to use the quote unquote rip by the coaches, but would you say that the technique of them actually constructively criticizing you, let's say they did that alone, would you say that was more beneficial for you, or would you have said that it was more beneficial for you to get the constructive criticism maybe sporadically throughout it, or maybe just one like rush with it? You get what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think the one rush, like I remember our coach kind of blew the whistle. I fumbled in practice or something like that, or no, I missed a block, and he blew the whistle and like just like went in on me in front of the whole team. Basically, how I want people to block for me, but I'm not trying to block for anybody else. That whole thing, and it that those type of things kind of wake me up.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I work, and different players react to different things. Some people who don't like to be screamed at.
You tighten up.
Yeah, so I tighten up. Like, all right, let me get my stuff together. Because I'm always fearful of, like, somebody is trying to take my job, right? And so if I have a bad day in the office, like they're going to replace me. And so
That's very true.
I kind of have a healthy fear. It kind of creates that, I guess, quote unquote, anxiety for me, but it makes me want to be better. So it kind of just depends on the personality, really. But for me, yeah, tell me I'm doing bad, and I'm going to show you up.
Okay.
For you guys, and each one you'll answer in a sentence or less, and I'll tell you how much. All right, so this first one I'm excited about because I feel like we'll get some different perspectives. But I just want one word. Finish the sentence. Coaching is about. Corey.
Leadership.
Responsibility.
Execution.
Good. All right, this next one is another finish the sentence, but you can use as many words as you need to do that. 2020 allowed me to.
Reset my goals.
Take some time to plan some things.
Understand my doubts.
All right, and this last one, one sentence. What have you come to know to be true that others may disagree with you on?
Well, I think you gotta do what you feel is best, and that could be different. But I think the number one thing I'm trying to say is you gotta go with your heart.
Yeah, trust yourself.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
Mm-hmm. It can be related to sports or it can be bigger, but what's something that you've learned to be true that other people would disagree with you on?
That's a good one. Come back to me.
I'll keep it simple. There's a God.
That's a good one.
Thinking of one. I say where there's a will, there's a way. If anything.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is take a moment, if we could, if we could allow Eugene the floor to take a minute to discuss maybe his upcoming book.
Oh yeah, so I think they call it, what do they call it? A series of, you have four, but you on your third one is like tetralogy or something like that. But this,
Trilogy.
yeah,
You the book man, so you can read something.
I tried to look that up. But
Yeah.
so I just completed the athlete student junior year. It's a sequel to freshman and sophomore year, so it's a lot that has transpired with the main character, Michael Tootie
Is
Mayberry.
that it right there?
Yep,
Let's see.
he goes by the name of Tootie. Phenomenal athlete. He's at the University of Georgia, and he, yeah, I don't want to spoil the first two books, but he just has a lot going on in his personal life, a lot going on the field, and he's just trying to make sense of it as a 20-year-old ball player. Just faced with a lot of different challenges. He makes a lot of rash decisions that he has to deal with the consequences on. Just trying to really shed some light on, I guess, the internal thought process of some athletes and how those things are handled.
Okay.
And when does the athlete student junior year become available?
I'm thinking this spring, more so around May.
Okay.
So that's what I'm shooting for.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I also read these because
Oh,
they were sitting around our house, and they're great. So if you haven't read the freshman year and the sophomore year, get them before junior year comes out.
I gotta read
because
this.
I would recommend them to any coach, any player, especially the first one. There was a lot in there I feel like that is not always talked about with kids, that is the main character goes through like in his personal life.
Yeah.
And that's a big, a lot of the theme of what we've been talking about today. There's a lot to what's going on with our athletes besides what's on the field or the court.
Let me ask you this, Eugene. What advice would you give any early rising freshmen going into high school who think that this is all or nothing? This is, if I can't do this, the world's over. What advice would you give to an athlete with that mentality?
Yeah, I would just say, just try your best to expose yourself to just different things. Like the world is so big, there's so many different opportunities. One, you know, focus on your grades freshman and sophomore year.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Really, really understand what type of credits do you need. Research college majors. Like, do your due diligence even as a youngster, so you have a goal of once you get to a senior, because it's gonna come fast, right? So don't put all your eggs in one basket, but just try to diversify yourself. And so that's kind of a lot. But one, just try to stay as disciplined and focused as you possibly can. I know, for myself, I would give myself the advice of leave the girls alone. That was a big
Yeah.
part of my high school journey. Got me to make some really bad decisions growing up. And sit down and read a book and study, and you know what I'm saying, take some time to get to know who you are.
Okay. I appreciate you saying that because our listeners need to hear that. If I can ask you another question, is there anything you regret not doing that you probably procrastinated about doing in high school?
Oh, I can give you a laundry list of things. That I regret not doing.
That right now in your life, it seemed like, okay, let's say that you just procrastinate on something that right now is a big part of your life.
I think reading, taking like the time I was growing up, it was kind of cool to be like the dumb jock.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, you made an A. They tease you for making, you know what I'm saying,
Right,
A's and
right.
B's, or being a smart kid. But I wish, because I was capable of it. I just, you know what I'm saying, I tried to follow the in crowd a little bit too much. And so I guess my biggest regret is just not taking time to get to know who I was. I tried to fit the mold of like Cash Money Records was a big, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
And
right.
I was trying to be somebody that I necessarily wasn't. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that just wasted a lot of time instead of being comfortable in my own skin. And so I would say, like, just taking time and reflecting of who I am and who I desire to be. And sometimes those things don't come to you when there's a lot of noise. You have to kind of, be isolated to really just get a sense of hearing yourself and getting to understand yourself more.
Well, I'm interested hearing that now I focus on some of your hardships. So hearing that you had the right of mind to kind of look within yourself after you had your injury, was there a time frame where you were still optimistic, or was it an immediate? Oh, I think this is kind of ending some things I kind of got coming up. Was there a
No,
time frame where you were like, maybe this is all right still, or was it an instant thing on that field? You were like,
no, I was still optimistic. So I still, did my pro day and ran the 40 and did all those things. I just knew that I wasn't the same.
okay, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
Like, did you
yeah,
feel like you
One that's
were
explosive.
like
Another.
something was changed? Like when
yeah.
okay,
Like
so
the whole,
you could tell.
yeah, I could tell, but something, the athlete competitiveness in me still thought I, had a shot, had a chance. And I still even had an agent represent me.
Mm.
And I remember watching the draft, 2009 draft, and not getting selected. But I still, I'm always going to think I still can compete and I'm
Right,
still
right, right.
better. You know what I mean? But I kind of knew in the back of my mind, it was like, all right, I need to focus on something else. But I wasn't real with myself because I didn't know what to focus on. So I thought if I can try to continue, the pursuit of this dream, it delays the inevitable of me trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Honestly, I was a 5'9", 175-pound running back, and even then, I got tired of running full speed to 295-pound defensive ends. You know what I'm saying? So I knew, my body just wouldn't hold up. But I didn't know what else I wanted to do, so I kind of lied to myself. It's like I'm just gonna try to ride this train until the wheels fall off.
Mhm.
But really, I should have been trying to, grasp my mind into, making that transition because I kind of knew.
Would you had changed the path of that 6 year old self of you?
Oh, no, I think I value the time that athletics and the things that it taught me.
Hmm.
I just wish I wasn't so narrow-minded, right? I
Mhm.
wish instead of just sitting at the lunch table with all the cool kids,
What
right?
could somebody have said to you back then to help with that narrow mindedness? And the reason
Um,
I ask that is because these are things that you're answering questions that are
yeah,
like helpful.
yeah.
You know.
I would just say, man, like everybody. I wish somebody would have told me like everybody is not your friend.
Okay.
Right? And so people hung around me because I was quote unquote athletic, and that makes you the cool kid, right? But I wish I would have sat next to the quiet kid at lunch
Mm.
who you know what I mean, who was an introvert and just got to learn their story. And so the best thing about college for me is that, right, I'm from Virginia Beach, but then you get kids from California, from Florida, from, what I'm saying, Michigan, wherever, and then they come into this one place and you get to learn from all of their experiences. So that kind of exposes you to, different cultures, different backgrounds, and you get the sense like, oh man, the world is bigger than what I thought it was.
Mm.
And so I wish I even could have did that, right here when I was, 6, 7 years old, or even in high school, because we still come from different backgrounds and different cultures. I was just so narrow-minded that if you didn't like what I liked, right, you're not cool, or I didn't want to hang around you. And so I just wish I knew better in that sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with, and like you said before, you kind of touched on that, how like the mental health in our area, well, not area, but in our community isn't something that everyone wants to talk about. And it's the same thing when you're younger. There's certain things that we're scared to just be like, it's nothing wrong with you sitting there reading your book by yourself. There's nothing wrong with you paying attention and just chilling out and just, being a little respectful. It's like we got so far away from it because we're taught that if you can be seen, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely.
like, we got to get a little bit away from that ideology. It's hard because it takes, you got to figure you got 50 people, it's only 4 people who are going to try to fight for it to be like
Yeah.
that. And it's one of them things where I value the heck out of it, especially with boys out here in this world. And something you touched on, and that's real. And that hits everybody's life, when certain things happen. And like you said, what happened with your brother. And it's one of the unfortunate things. I mean, I'd like to ask you, not to be too personal, but I mean, how'd that impact you?
Oh man, I don't want to be long-winded, so cut me off. But it rocked me. And so first, when I do talk to my brother, because my brother was in the military,
Mm-hmm.
but I had an older cousin who was really high ranked in the army, and so he got it for my brother to be stationed here, which was a big mistake. right? Because he hung around with some of the same high school friends. But when I talked to my brother, he was like, man, I wish I just, went away, or I wish I didn't kind of follow people instead of being a leader. But when my brother did what he did, he got out the military because it was around 9/11. He had this made up thing in his mind that he was going to go off to war, right? Because my uncle died in the Kuwait War, and so he didn't really necessarily want to go to war.
Right.
So he came back here, just started, hanging around with some of the same people who hung around in high school, who wasn't up to no good, smoking every day, drinking every day, just doing like just useless stuff. And so he knew he had a friend at work, and it happened right here in Virginia Beach Boulevard, the Bank of America. He had a friend who worked at Village Inn that was right next to
Right
it.
next
My
door.
brother worked there, and he knew they just walked over to make the deposit whatever day they did. And so early in the morning, my brother kind of hid out, waited for the manager to do it, walked up behind him and robbed him. But he shot him twice, once in the leg, once in the arm, grabbed the money. And then he was on a run, though. He was on a run for like 3 weeks. And that was the scariest part, because, you know what I mean? You think that if the police even see him, they had his picture blasted on the news channel, right? And so you think the police see him, they're going to shoot him because he was considered armed and dangerous, right? If you commit a robbery, they don't know if you still have the same gun you use. So, I mean, that was the scariest part, because the detectives came to talk to me. I even seen one time where the detectives were, like posted outside of my house thinking my brother was going to come back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They thought that I was him, or I thought they was going to think that I was him. Like if I left out at night or something like that. And it was just like 3 weeks of terror. And then I remember my brother calling me. He was like, man, I'm ready to turn myself in.
That's
'Cause
strong.
he told me straight up, he was like, man, being on a run from the police is the most exhausting thing ever. And I can only imagine. And so I called the detective, because I talked to him before, and he gave me his card, and I was like, my brother want to turn himself in. And he gave me the directions of, what we was going to do. He's like, I'm going to give you guys a couple hours. And so me and my brother went to Applebee's right up here, right on, what is it, Kinsville?
Yeah.
And
Applebee's
I
right
wanted to get,
Lido.
what I'm saying, get my brother something to eat. I even got him like a shot or something like that. I was like, it's about to be a long night.
Yeah.
But the detectives came in there. Like, not the same detectives, but different detectives, because he's still considered armed and dangerous. So they, I guess he is a threat to the community,
Yeah.
and I can see him, and so didn't think nothing of it. And so we riding down. He wanted to see his daughter. He had she was 1.5 at the time, and he stopped to his baby mother's house, and he hugged his daughter, and then we went to my aunt's house, and he took a shower and everything, and we kind of like prayed around him or whatnot. And detectives came and got him like maybe like 4 hours later, so we had a chance to catch up or whatnot. I was asking my brother all types of questions, like what made you do it, you know what I'm saying, some stuff I won't repeat, and that's when I asked him like what was being on a run like, and that's what he was like, man, it was exhausting.
Right.
Like he said he was in North Carolina, he was bouncing from house to house, and I guess when the money ran dry, it was like, man, like I can't
run no more.
yeah, he was like he would just sit on the HRT and just ride all day. Man, can you imagine? You know what I'm saying? You see a
crazy.
police and you ducking down. And yeah, he subsequently sentenced to 30 years. And he would tell you straight up, like, man, I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. I made, it wasn't just one decision. It was
Multiple.
it was multiple that led up to it. And that changed my outlook on life. Now I'm like, man, you only get one. Like what you want to be remembered for? Like part of your life right now is gonna be remembered for you harming somebody else. And a funny story, my cousin coached the Woodstock Mustangs, like a little league Pop Warner team, and the guy that he shot, son played on that team.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, he said
Small
he was huddled around, and the guy was talking about the incident, and he didn't even want to admit that that was his relative. You know what I'm saying? And so when people commit crimes, like they're not only committing crimes to them, they're harming somebody else too.
People around.
You know what I mean? Somebody that you don't know. So you and on top of that, when your loved one go to prison, a small piece of you is in prison too. I felt like I was doing time when I go see my brother. I'm patted down like I'm a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it just changed my whole thought process. It altered, so many lives. And so I tell that story straight up.
Yeah.
When I talk about the books, right? My brother's bunkmate is the artist who's doing all my book covers. Who's done the first two, who's doing the third one, right? He's a talented individual.
Yes.
And I talked to him, and he's doing life without parole, right? He's like, he'll tell me straight up, I'm gonna die in jail. He's a talented individual, one of the smartest guys I ever had a chance to speak with, right? And he made a dumb decision. He committed a crime. He's from Washington, D.C. He committed a crime in Harrisonburg, Virginia, the same place where James Madison University is. They got into a car. They knew a drug dealer house, and they was just going to rob it, get the money and go, and they turned it to somebody, getting murdered. And he's doing life for that without parole, and he's going to die there. And it's just like, man, it's decision making, and the people you hang around with, it's so many different, it's multifaceted. It's so many different pieces to it. And it's just sad to see, or you know what I'm saying, to see people throw their lives away, and so that's the sad part for me. And I think athletics is a way that we do kind of pull ourselves out of it. But after we're done with that, what's next? What kind of example are you gonna leave your legacy on this world to be like, I live? And so, man, I can go on and on about it, but yeah, to make a long story short, man, it kind of just it rocked me, man. It rocked me, and it's still to this day it continues to rock me.
Right, I'm sure. And like I said before, I definitely appreciate you sharing it. These are things that there are people, we never know how it helps, or affects. And I'm always interested in the athlete's perspective on what they draw upon and how that affects them and how they put that back out there. Because, we've been following you, we've kept in contact, and it's not many people who give back as far as taking the time to try to put it out in a perspective that is going to catch a few. Because you'd be surprised the barbershops that I'll catch a book in, and some of the people that are sitting there reading it. And I'm like that made me smile a little bit, because I'm the type of person that you can't give me this and just read. I have to open it up. I got to analyze it. And then I got to say to myself, okay, I can handle that. You know what I mean? Where if I'm feeling too intimidated, or this can look nice, but when I open it, if it can't be read right, and the way you put it together is something that I know I can take. And I definitely appreciate that. And I definitely think others should take the time to grab a hold of that. And you do have it available on Amazon.
Yes, sir.
And I think that the third one you said will be out in the summer.
Yes.
But I definitely think everybody should at least check out the first one. If you're loving that, check out the second one, and the third one will be right on the way. Again, I appreciate everybody making it out today. This has been a good coach episode. Definitely appreciate Eugene making it out.
Thank you.
Lovely Miss Allison and Coach Corey. Definitely appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good job, everybody.
Good job.
Appreciate y'all having me, man. It's always a pleasure.
Check in weekly for new episodes of Coach. And for your viewing pleasure, take a look at our robust catalog. And remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell.